Oh, here we go. There's a lot going on in the manager circle, let's put it that way. A few notes before we get into the main topic. Now, to begin with, our guy Pedro Sepulveda has been speaking about Ruben Amorim. He said yesterday he's the only name on Liverpool's table to be the next coach. All the others are fake news, he actually used that term, and an aim to divert the attention from negotiations taking place with Amorim's agent. Still no contact with Sporting. Obviously, Ruben Amorim came out recently and said, stop talking about me. I am the Sporting manager. Leave it at that. Julian Nagelsmann looks like he's destined to return to Bayern Munich, which is interesting. Obviously, one of the names who's been in and around the frame for the Liverpool job. David Ornstein has spoken last night. He said Roberto De Zerbi still probably not going to be the one who'll be getting the job. He is not of the profile we're looking for. Amorim's been heavily linked, but his understanding is despite he's a candidate, he's not a shoo-in for the job, and he's not necessarily the top option either. He did go on to say Liverpool looking at a number of options. They're finalising their work on them and will not be afraid to be brave and think outside the obvious candidates. Now, that takes us to Niko Kovac, in my opinion. Now, I've said this sort of flippantly in conversation, not even on shows necessarily in the past week, and we kind of touched on it last week in a way as well, Neil. Like, this manager search now, it does feel a little bit reminiscent of our midfielder DM search in particular. Because it was Moises Caicedo, it was Romeo Lavia, and all of a sudden it wasn't, and it was Taro Endo. Yeah. Like, if it's not Xabi Alonso, Julian Nagelsmann, Ruben Amorim, and this is no disrespect to whoever the guy could well be, but it does feel a little bit Taro Endo-esque in that it's going to be a bit of a surprise potentially.
Yeah, I suppose if it's not Amorim, it will be, won't it? And Amorim's a risk anyway, but I think it will be Amorim, personally. But you're right. If you take him, if you scratched him off the list and said, right, where are we going now? You go, okay, that's a lot of unknowns in there. You know, I don't know if can you get the betting odds up, or who would be?
I found them now.
Who will be on there? Because I was trying to think that, you know, you might have. I think De Zerbi will probably still be in there somewhere, but
despite the fact it doesn't look like it,
you'll have possibly Unai Emery. In there, and you know, you've got, you know, I'm trying to think, Steven Gerrard would probably be on the list somewhere along the lines, and that would be obviously a big surprise.
Yeah, so Amorim obviously top of the betting, Roberto De Zerbi, Julian Nagelsmann, Thiago Motta, but he looks Juventus bound last I heard. Thomas Tuchel's not far behind, Gary O'Neill, Unai Emery as you mentioned, Louis Enrique, Roger Schmidt, Zinedine Zidane, Graham Potter, Marco Rose, Marco Silva, Lopetegui.
Zinedine Zidane and Graham Potter in next to each other.
I mean, Xabi Alonso's, you know, midway in the list, and we know it's not going to be him. Enzo Maresca's struggling. I mean, I'm surprised Thomas Frank's that low, I'll be really honest.
Yeah, I mean, I think Thomas Frank ticks a few boxes in terms of, I think he connect with supporters and energise them. I think that would be one. Obviously, he's done a good job in limited circumstances with Brentford, Premier League proven. I think style of play possibly would be one that you question, maybe. Just the level, just the sheer level of stepping up from the bottom of the Premier League or the bottom half of the Premier League to the top half. But I do like him. I think he's a really good character. He's just someone I like as a person. You know, sort of want him to do well. He in a lot of Premier League managers can come across poorly, I think, and I think he never really does. So not to me anyway. Possibly. I mean, I'd be interested to know what fans would think of Emery as a manager, because I watched the second half of that. Well, I watched the whole of that Arsenal game. But if you can get Aston Villa playing that way, you know, and listen, Aston Villa aren't a small club by any means, and they're not on a small budget, but they're overachieving where they are at this moment in time. But they're also overachieving in terms of the performance levels that they're producing. You know, he's some coach. He is some coach and some manager. You know, his track record, Arsenal might colour it to a few people, but he still got them to a European final. If you talk about pedigree and sort of, you know, what have you got in your back pocket, sort of there, he's as well sort of stocked as anyone really in there. But is it a perception thing? Is it an age thing, or just a communication thing maybe that would suffer? But he's a manager that I think he's a brilliant manager. I know we talked last week about you had Guillaume Balaguer on, and he was talking about Valverde and maybe being underappreciated and not touted for jobs. I think Emery's another one of those. I think, you know, the fact that he's come to the Premier League and done what he did. I mean, he did it at Sevilla, he did it at Villarreal, obviously, before that. Success seems to follow, or progress certainly seems to follow.
In Europe, anyway.
Absolutely. But you're doing it in the Premier League now. They're in a very good position now, aren't they, to qualify for the Champions League as Aston Villa manager. And it's funny, isn't it, that you think Steven Gerrard was obviously in that position maybe 2 years ago, and you were thinking, right, if he just does, but you would never have dreamt that Steven Gerrard would get Aston Villa into the Champions League. You'd have said if Steven Gerrard kept Aston Villa sort of 8th, 9th in the league, you'd go, well, he's a shoe-in for the Liverpool job when Klopp leaves. Unai Emery's 4th in the league with Aston Villa, so
should he be higher on the list?
Should he be? Listen, he might be difficult to get out of them, but he is one. I think Inzaghi, I've mentioned on the shows in the past, that you think, well, I'm looking at sort of what he's achieved, and you think that's another one that really, I'm surprised he doesn't get sort of touted for more jobs. Look, I personally think it will be Amorim. But like I say, you move out of that. If you were to tick him off, if he was to come out and do it on Alonso and say, I'm having one more year, sorry, then you are starting to get into the realm of, okay, this is going to be interesting. This is going to be a sort of a real left field or risky appointment. I don't think Kovac, to move on to Niko Kovac, I don't see that as being a realistic prospect. He's, someone he's not been popular, I think, in terms of, when he's done it, even if he won, I think he won a double at Bayern Munich. But he was already seen as someone who, he's not for them really. I think he was moved out. I think the story said something like his agent has been sounding out Premier League clubs, and you think, well, yeah, that makes more sense than Liverpool putting that name out there. I think it's more likely to come from that. But I think we'll have to wait and see. But I would expect Amorim to stay top of the agenda. And they had obviously another good weekend, didn't they? They won Friday, kept that gap up to Benfica. What are they? Are they 2 wins away from winning the league?
And I think they play tonight as well.
Yeah, and they've got a cup final obviously on the horizon as well. I thought his press conference was good, wasn't it? I like the fact that he just said, look, this is the last time we're going to talk about it, and that's one way to do it, isn't it? But I think I have to take him at his word at this moment in time. But I expect there'll be more developments in that situation. You
would imagine so, and he said the right things. I think really, you'd want to hear that, wouldn't you, if you're a sports fan?
And his players, okay, they might all accept the gaffer's probably off at the end of the season, but you don't want him coming out and saying, well, you look at the difference with De Zerbi a little bit. What them Brighton players feel when he's coming out and saying, well, I need to have a speak with the owner, and they need to match my ambitions, and blah blah blah. It does lend itself to a little bit of sort of
you're not fully invested.
You're not here for us. Maybe we've had conversations where you've told me that you come and join Brighton because I'm here for the long run and I want you to be part of it. And now you're sort of saying you might jump ship. And maybe it just also gives the impression that all's not well at the club if you're doing stuff like that. So at least Amorim, I think he was more than fair to do it, and I actually think it's probably it's a feather in his cap a little bit from a Liverpool point of view that he's conducting himself in that manner.
Yeah, I agree with you. And also, if you haven't seen the clip of him shouting at Pepe at Porto, then where have you been? Because that's been doing the rounds. And it's nice to see, isn't it? I will just draw lights.
Everyone shouts at Pepe. He's the ultimate wind-up.
I'm here for it. There's 3 names in here. Fernandez Torres at 40-1, Steven Gerrard at 40-1, and Abel Xavier at 40-1 as well. So
there you go, another three.
Wow.
What's Abel Xavier? I have to admit, I don't know what Abel Xavier does these days. What's his?
He is going down the coaching route, and I'm pretty 99.9% certain he did his coaching badges with Ruben Amorim.
Okay.
Over in Belfast. A couple of years ago.
That's maybe Gerrard's 2 years too late. Torres is 2 years too early. The timing is an interesting thing, isn't it? Again, I am a little bit surprised. Maybe a little bit surprised that we haven't seen Steven being positioned, or even positioning himself a little bit and sort of saying, well, don't forget about me, okay, you can accept I had a bad time at Villa and I went to Saudi Arabia and it's a little bit out of sight to the mainstream, but don't forget Jürgen anointed him You know, I think he basically said he will be the next Liverpool manager, or he will be a future Liverpool manager. So I am a little bit surprised that there's been no talk really about him in there, and even from his side, you know, I don't know if he's been asked. I'd be surprised if he hasn't. You know, people wouldn't be doing the job. I don't think if someone hadn't said to him at one of his team's games, would you be interested? But yeah, you think if this was 18 months ago, 2 years ago, that, you know, every story would have been Steven Gerrard to Liverpool, Steven Gerrard to Liverpool, and I am a little bit surprised at that, even if maybe that tells you a little bit about, you know, how quickly things change in management. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, his stock definitely took a massive hit, and maybe it tells you a little bit about where he's at in terms of his managerial career and his ambitions as well. But I make you right on Kovac as well, for its worth. I put an agenda there 2 years because I feel like he only ever does 2 years anywhere he's at, and all his managerial stints have been pretty much that long, and I'm not sure Liverpool need or want that right now. However, having said that, the idea of a stopgap for a season while we wait for Xabi Alonso has definitely crossed my mind.
Jürgen to change his mind.
Yeah, whichever way, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it.
Wait for Jürgen to get bored.
Yeah, he wants a year out.
What's he want to do? He's got to learn to cook, he said to me.
That would take
It's taken me 39.
Yeah, my missus might disagree actually with me on that.
Hey, thank you so much for checking out the content today. If you want to get your name in and amongst these wonderful people, then head to redmenplus.com. Join as a Legend tier subscriber. You're going to get free merchandise codes. You're going to get in our Discord, and you're going to get your name at the end of YouTube videos. Yes, redmenplus.com, Legend tier status.